Hi, I'm Kevin Dehani, and today I'm going to show you how I made my Borg costume, including the helmet, the arm, and the pants. What's cool about this costume is that the components could easily be um, painted differently or converted into a steampunk robot or steampunk cyborg costume. Obviously, there are many components to this kind of costume, but there are also several layers. You can't just glue tubes and stuff to a shirt. It's not going to work. So you're going to start, first of all, with your underlayer. And that's, I went to the thrift store. Everything is pretty much from the thrift store. I found one of these super ultra lightweight sort of workout exercise shirts. It's the kind that wicks the sweat away from your body. You definitely want something like that because these costumes are going to be hot. And I got it actually a bigger size so that it was roomy. You can do it skin tight if you don't mind that, but I wanted a little bit extra breathability. So this goes on first, and then all of the actual board components are affixed to like this vest, which I wear on top of the shirt. The pants that I got are actually women's pants. And the reason is because they're stirrup pants. And because I'm wearing big, like tall boots for this Borg outfit, these stirrup pants work so good with keeping your pant in the boot. It just creates a really tight looking silhouette, which looks good. So it's a little secret, guys. A lot of costuming is actually women's clothing. So there you go. Anyway, so we'll get to the pants later. So once you find your shirt, you can start working on the actual vest. So what I did for the vest, and I'm going to be moving the camera around a little bit here, is I found a yoga mat. So this is just a black, maybe 1/4 inch yoga mat. You can find thicker mats. You'll see a lot of guys like Evil Ted working with this really thick stuff that they find at the automotive store. It's for this undergarment, it's too thick and too heavy for me. So this worked out perfect. So I got the yoga mat. I created a pattern, which it's kind of like a vest, and it pretty much fits me. So I cut that out, and then I'm gonna zoom in on the actual piece itself. So the first thing you're going to want to figure out is how you want to secure this vest at the sides. This vest that I showed you, this is as wide as it goes. This is actually as wide as the yoga mat goes. And so what I did is when I put it on, the vest I wanted kind of tight to my body. So this side of the vest, what I did was I used contact cement and I stuck it together. After wearing it for a little while, I quickly realized that as strong as that contact cement is, it was not strong enough to keep it together. It started coming apart at the seams. I tried hot glue, same thing. It just, with this, I don't know, maybe it's the yoga mat, it just wasn't strong enough. So I got this black gaffer's tape, which is kind of the same as black duct tape, put it on this side of the seam, on the inside of the seam, along with the glue. Perfect, no problem. It held together, no sweat. Then what I did is, and this is before you put all this junk on, you want to figure out how you're going to secure it, is I went online and I purchased these clips. These are just your standard backpack clips. And I also purchased, it's called nylon webbing for the straps. And I just literally took this under my sewing machine and sewed each one of these on each side. Now you could also use Velcro. For the next Borg costume that I'm making for someone, I am going to use Velcro And again, I would sew it down. Velcro and this stuff it's not going to hold with just glue, okay? So even if you end up sewing it by hand or find somebody to help you sew it, you're going to want to sew it down. When this is buckled and closed like this, okay, all the way down, as you can see, I measured it exactly, so it's pretty tight in form fitting to my body. It doesn't have to be that way. If you want, or if you're a bigger person, you could easily do these straps so that there's a gap, okay? So that once you put it on like a vest, you could extend this strap all the way around, or the Velcro all the way like this. Sorry for the camera angle. You could extend it like this. And you could do that on both sides. You don't have to glue one of the sides. You could keep it simple and just do a Velcro or these closures on both sides if you want to. So that's just another way to secure it. It's also a way to expand it if you need more room in the costume. Okay, so now I'm going to start going over all the individual components. And really, you can use anything. It's only limited to your imagination. But what I did, and what I'm going to do also for this other costume that I'm making for someone, is I went again to the thrift store, and I found, I'm not sure if this was for hockey or football, and this is actually child size, but it didn't matter because I'm taking it all apart. And what I'm using is just the shoulder piece. So I kind of did a pre-spray paint. I think this was blue or something, and I spray painted it black. And then what I did is I just flipped, oh yeah, it was blue. And then I flipped it over, and I bought 2 of these, and I removed this top sort of armor plating. And that's what I want for the Borg. Now, if you wanted to, I've seen people keep the padding on. It's just a personal preference. To me, the padding made it look more like a football or a hockey gear. And so that's why I wanted to remove it. So I removed it. As you can see, and it's pretty easy to do. These are just held together by, I don't know, they're these plastic things, and I just snipped them out. The padding came out pretty easy. In the back, it was attached pretty good together, and I just cut, this is plastic, so I just cut that down. Now, some of these are held together with these rivets. Those were a biatch to try to get out of this one, and you have to use a pliers, but it's totally possible. You can totally disassemble it. Okay, so started with this shoulder patch on this one, as you can see. Let me move and get into the light a little bit better so you can see. Okay, here's the deal. Unless something is really lightweight, glue is not going to hold on to this vest, okay? So what I did, what was great about this armor is it already had all these little holes in it. And so what I did was I took a shoelace, and I'm going to try to zoom in, and just like when you were a kid, like doing sewing cards, maybe you didn't do that, you can see I literally stitched with shoelace, and I stitched the whole thing to hold it on to this vest. And I did it kind of, any open holes, I did it all the way around. You can really kind of see it on the back here. I tried to keep these shorter, and there's like big giant, obviously, stitching on the inside. So that's secure. That's not going anywhere. And how I did it, you don't use a needle to thread this stuff. So what I did is I got a skewer, like a barbecue skewer, and or you could also use a small Phillips screwdriver. And so I'd stick it through, I'd match it up and stick it through the hole of where I wanted it. And then I would push the long shoelace, because it does have that hard plastic thing at the end. I would stick that through the hole, and that's how I would thread it and sew it all the way around. So that's just a tip. If you come up with a better way to secure this, definitely share that and let me know. All right, so then once that was on, the next thing that I wanted to do was this main centerpiece. For this main front piece, it's going to be kind of hard to see, but it's sort of a big upper round piece. It's all one piece, and then it comes down like this. What it is I pulled it off of a speaker, like a stereo speaker that I got from the thrift store for like $1 or something, and I pulled that off, and then I cut off that sort of fine mesh that you find on the front of the speaker. So I cut that off, and so this had a nice big hole in it so that I could put my plasma lumen in there. So this is a plasma lumen, and I'm going to shut the light off. I found it online. It was like $35, so it was a little bit spendy. And then I just basically kind of did the rewiring on it, and then when you turn it on, it's so super cool Borg-like. The lighting's kind of bad. I hope you can see it in this video. Resistance is futile. So that again is called a plasma lumen, Lumen, and you can find them on eBay. They come in all different colors, red, blue, green, rainbow. I picked the green because that was, I thought, very Borg-like. So I basically set that inside the circle of my speaker mount. Now you could just mount it by itself. You don't need to have this framework underneath it, or you can make your own framework out of foam. How I should tell you how I attached this plastic speaker mount. Here you can kind of see the whole side of it. How I attached this and a lot of these big things to the vest was with zip ties. Zip ties are totally going to be your friend when doing this project. So like here's a zip tie. I don't know if you can see it. There's one there. I just basically did one on the top, and then I zip tied again like stitching. I zip tied down this side here on each side, and so that's super secure. Then I was able to mount my lumen inside. So to cover up and disguise this lumen, I use this cord control stuff like you find at the office store, only of course I found mine at the thrift store. And it works great. It's super flexible. It's already pre-cut. And I just kind of put it around the edge and then hot glued that on. So just an example like that, and I just fed it all the way around the circle, hot glued it on. This tubing, this was awesome. I found this. I got this from, they were throwing it out at the hardware store because it leaks. This is that expand-a-hose for your garden. The hose that starts out really small, and then once you fill it with water, it gets really long. So they gave it to me for free. That was cool. And it has this plastic tubing inside of it. And so what I would do, and it's kind of all attached. So what I would do is I would cut off whatever length of tubing that I needed, and then I would just pull out this white plastic piece. And this stuff is awesome, and it's flexible, and I used it throughout the whole costume. You could use that hide-a-cord office stuff, but it's a little bit more rigid and just a little bit harder to work with. So some people I've seen use automotive tubing on their Borg costume. Super expensive, so unless you found a deal on that, I avoided that. All this other wiring, again from the thrift store, this is just cable, like cable, from your cable TV. Some of the smaller pieces that I used for the cable, what I would do just for the shorter lengths, I was able to pull the inside of the cable out. That actually made it a little bit lighter weight and made it much more flexible. Like this piece is just the black tubing. Whoops, sorry about that. So this piece up here is this little piece is just black tubing. There's no coaxial cable inside of it. Let's see, more decoration stuff. Okay, this awesome light. This is a bike light. I'll show you what it looks like. So it's like this, one of these emergency, put it on your bike. So what I did was I took painter's tape and I just taped off this light section with painter's tape, and then all the rest of it I spray painted black. Once it dried, peeled off the painter's tape, and there you go. You got 3 different settings: rapid flash if you want to put people into a seizure, slower flash, and then just on for constant. Let's see. Oh, this is really fun. Okay, so down here, this power pack that I created, these are women's curlers that they use when they perm their hair. They had a really cool shape and a really cool look, and they were already gray. And so what I did is I just kind of spray painted them black, and then I just, like everything here, I'd highlight and I just brush a little bit of silver paint on it. And then these little cool wires, they're kind of like rubber bands. That's the rubber band that's used on the curler to hold the hair in place. So I just pulled those off, repurposed them to make them look like electrical connections. And what's cool is these curlers have holes in the bottom. So as you can see, you can kind of stick tubing up in them. I used a bunch here. I used them on the Borg Arm. I used them on the helmet. I just thought they had a really super cool look. Let's see. So okay, Borg Costume. The pants that I have don't have any pockets, and you got to have a place for your phone. You got to have a place for your money and your ID and keys and all that junk. So what I did was I found this case, all right? And it's just, I don't know, it's some kind of case I found at the thrift store. Spray painted it black. It's big enough to hold everything: money, keys, wallet, you name it. And then I attached it with a zip tie at the bottom, and then I just threaded through a piece of Velcro on the side. So it just kind of sits up like this. I just kind of Velcro it just tight in place, and there you go. You got a built-in pouch for all your stuff. I've seen other people use like an old binocular case that they've attached, spray painted it all black and attached that. You know, it's just nice to have something. Unless your pants have pockets in them, you're going to need something to carry all your stuff. The back. All right, this is cool. So for the back of the Borg Vest, I created this. This stuff it's called, I don't know, again, I found it at the, actually, I think I might have found this at Home Depot. Some of it was really cheap. Like $3. This is called Stealth Flow, and it's used, I don't know, it must be used for like rain guttery stuff or something. I'm not exactly sure. Anyway, so I cut it open. So I just used the top half of it. And then what I did after it was already black, so I didn't need to spray paint it. I cut out like every third section. I just took an X-Acto knife and cut out. It didn't take very long at all. So that the effect, what it looks like is, you know how the Borg have their like some of their devices that like dig into the skin and claw into the skin. And so in person, this kind of looks like, and when I'm wearing it, it kind of looks like it's digging into my back. Which it doesn't, and you don't feel it, and it's kind of cool. And then I just threaded the tubing, just kind of weave the tubing in and out. And again, in order to secure this to the vest, I used my shoelace technique again, and just poked holes and sewed the shoelace. I looped it here, looped it here, looped it here, and that's all, just right down the center. That's all. It's the only, the sides are all completely open on it. It's just secured down the middle, and that's enough. And I was able to just snake my tubing in and out of it. You could use anything. You don't even, some people I have seen not even do anything on the back. But this is flat enough where you can sit against a chair. So anything you put on the back, you're going to want to sit down. You get tired walking around at conventions. Make sure that like I can sit on this, I can lean up against a chair and it can smush it a little bit. It's not going to hurt it. It's not going to wreck the costume. And it's comfortable enough to sit up against stuff. So kind of keep that in mind when you're doing your build. That's about it on this costume. Now, I just want to share some other fun parts that I found that I'm going to use for the next build that I do. This is just my box of extra junk and parts. Okay, so one thing that I found that I thought was super cool were these golf cleats. All right, these were already black with a little bit of silver, and they totally look like those creepy nanoprobes that attach themselves to the blood that you've seen. So this is what it looks like. And I'm using them, I've actually used a couple of them on the helmet. They could be glued on like this. You could paint, I painted all the tongs silver just so that it really stands out. And again, it looks like it's clawed on. You could attach tubing to it to make it look really cool. So pretty much, anything you can think of, you can use for your build. Now I'm going to show you the helmet and the arm. So here's my Borg helmet, which you saw me wearing at the beginning of the video. So for the basic pattern for this helmet, I downloaded a pattern from Evil Ted Smith. If you don't know Evil Ted on YouTube, you gotta check him out. He is an amazing, awesome FX guy, works in Hollywood, and he does all these tremendous videos on YouTube that shows you how to make all kinds of cool cosplay costumes. Okay, so the helmet pattern from Evil Ted, which was like $5 or something like that, totally worth it. It was obviously a full helmet. It kind of reminded me of like a superhero's Marvel helmet. And so I radically altered the pattern after I downloaded it. So what I did first is I did the pattern, I cut it all out, I taped the pattern together with paper, and then I was able to go on the paper and cut it how I wanted it. Now, normally you remember like on a lot of the Borg Cyborg costumes, one of the eyes is completely covered. I don't like that for myself personally. I want all my depth perception, so I wanted both of my eyes free. So I came up with this solution instead. I did this sort of, I call it my pseudo Phantom of the Opera type of mask. And so what's great about this closed cell foam, which is what I used for the helmet, is that it's totally shapeable and moldable. All you do is you take your heat gun and you get it nice and really warm, not too hot though, because it will eventually melt it. And then you just press it and hold it into whatever shape you want. And once it cools down, it'll retain that shape. So I'm going to zoom in. I think you can kind of see how I have it shaped. Maybe if I wear it, you can see it better. I heated it up really good, and then I sort of pressed it against my mannequin head, and then I heated it up again and put it on really quick, not too hot, and I pressed it against my face so that it kind of completely molds to the side of my nose. It just adds an extra cool effect. Obviously the eye I had already sort of marked and cut out where I wanted the eye. Just a little silver paint, a little extra accent on that. For the top of the head, this obviously the helmet was completely covered. The Borg, which you could leave it completely covered and it'd be fine. I wanted to go the extra mile. Oftentimes you'll see the Borg, you'll see their bald head sticking through. So I just cut an oval shape. I put the helmet on. I actually had somebody mark it for me. If you just do a round circle, it's probably going to look odd because your head's not round. Your head is actually kind of more of an oval. So they used chalk. I have this sort of chalk stick that I've got because it's hard to see on the black. Cut it out with my X-Acto knife, and then for the inside, for that white piece, it's just a piece of white foam. It's the same thickness, and again, I molded. I cut out a larger piece of oval. I think you can sort of see it. I heated it up, stuck it on the top of the mannequin head, molded it, and once I got it into, and then you can also use your fist to kind of mold it and hold it. Once it cooled down and it kind of kept that rounded dome shape, then I just I used the hot glue gun and glued it in. So that was for the top of the head. The pieces on this, again, there are those amazing perm curlers that I found and just painted those. Okay, when you have this helmet on, you can't hear anything. And so I cut holes on each side, right here where my ear is and right here. And then I use those cool golf cleats that I showed you in the previous video. And if you zoom in, you can see the little holes. I don't know if you can see on the inside. So there, you can kind of see. There's a hole and it goes through. You can hear, it also lets a little bit of air in. The inside of this gets really hot and sweaty wearing it because it's, you know, there's no air circulation. So I did it for each side. This one I actually attached a tube on the outside, just made it part of the costume. But again, you can totally see the air holes. Let's see. Oh, this is one of those bike lights. Again, all I did was just spray painted it black. And then the inside was super, super white, bright white. It was really obnoxious. It was blinding people. So I took green acrylic paint and I just did like one light coat completely on the inside so that when you turn it on, it looks green. I don't know. The lights are not going to get that hot, so the acrylic paint should be fine. Some light bulbs you should not paint with acrylic paint. It heats up too much and the light bulbs can pop or overheat, whatever. I think this is going to be just fine. I don't know. I'll give it a shot. Other little things, little components. This was just a little electronic component I pulled out of something. Again, maybe an old phone, a piece of junk, something I got from the thrift store. Spray painted it black. A lot of people you'll see use circuit boards as part of their Borg decoration. That's cool depending on what it is. Sometimes it's immediately recognizable as a circuit board, and that's just kind of the look that I was avoiding. So this tiny little piece, and I kind of pulled out a wire and attached it to the helmet, just kind of made it look kind of extra cool. So I think that looks cool. This piece, this was a chin guard from some of the sports padding that I had purchased. Yanked that off, spray painted it. It already had all these cool holes already in it, so I could just put tubing, hot glued that on. And that's it. There you go. There is the Borg helmet. Again, yours could look like this. It could look very different. It's only limited to your imagination. Next, I'm going to show you the Borg arm that I constructed. So here's my Borg arm. This is the first one that I made. I'm actually in the process of making a new one for an upcoming con. And the new one that I'm going to make actually is going to be flexible. So there'll be a piece up on my bicep. There'll be a piece on the forearm. And it'll have a joint in it so I can flex my arm. This one just goes all the way up to my arm joint. And it's very kind of typical traditional Borg. It's pretty one piece that's stiff. So I'll go over the components with you. I started out by going to, this I got from Home Depot, and this is like rain gutter. It's super stiff. It's not really flexible at all. I think it came in like 12 feet for like $3. I don't know. It was super long. It barely fit in my car. But I have some other cool ideas that I can use with the excess that I purchased. So I started with this tube. I cut it to size, and then because the ends were kind of, I don't know, I didn't like how the ends looked. I thought they were a little bit sharp. Kind of the plastic is very stiff. So I just took some excess of this foam that I had left over from the helmet, and I just wrapped it around the ends, and then overlapped it on the inside. And then I built up the inside of this a little bit, just so that when I stuck it on my forearm with my shirt, it was kind of snug. It stayed in place. So that when I put my arm down at my side walking through the con, it didn't just slip off or fall off. So there's nothing else holding it on inside, and it's pretty lightweight. So it was very comfortable. I wore it for hours and hours. All right, going through, I created sort of this top bridge piece over all of it. And that was a section. I'm going to pause this and show you what I used. Okay, so this top bridge piece that you see is actually a section of this rain guttery stuff that I cut out. It's like, I don't know, a 2-inch section, and I just literally cut off the top part of it and just used the top half. It worked out perfectly. I was able to just glue it on and then glue stuff to it. It just added some extra dimension to the arm. This rigid hose is that stuff that I showed you before that you use in your office to keep all of your cables, for your computer cables, together. This is more of that flexible garden hose that I used. Here's those perm curlers again. Man, those were awesome. I used those. So I just used one on each side and attached and ran wires through them, kind of like power distributors. Again, painted, spray painted black, and then brushed with silver paint. Here's another one of those little components that I just spray painted. It's just some little tiny little circuit board. Spray painted it. Bike light, just like I showed you on the front of my suit. So it kind of matched, it kind of tied in. Again, it was the red, it's all red bike light. I put a piece of painter's tape over the lights, spray painted the whole thing black, peeled away the painter's tape, and again, you've got 3 different light settings. The rest, these are all different size cables, like coaxial cable. This was RF cable stuff, little pieces. The top. So this was kind of cool. All right, so this 3-pronged device I got from the thrift store, and it was a personal massage device. I'm not gonna say anymore. Needless to say, I brought it home, sterilized it, spray painted it black. I took it all apart, and I just used the top 3-prong part. It fit perfectly in this end. And then again, there's those perm curler rods. I swear to God, those were the best part of this whole costume. Glued those on. The tips of them, these are those sort of RF cable, the ends of those that I snipped off, that you would plug in. You might recognize it. You'd plug it in, you know, the red, yellow, white that you'd plug in. So I just glued it to the end of those, spray painted the whole thing. This whole piece device, this is a refrigerator filter for water. Again, found it at the thrift store for a couple bucks. Glued it, spray painted it, or glued it and then spray painted it into the personal massage device. The top, this was part of a halogen. This little satellite dish cool looking thing was part of a halogen outdoor walkway light. Again, just a piece of garbage. It didn't work anymore. And on the inside, I just glued some other little, turned some piece upside down. I think it was one of these. I think it was one of these RF things that I cut off, turned it upside down and glued it in there. It doesn't move. And just walking through the crowd, you do have to be careful because it's just, these are hot glued. A couple people bumped into it, broke it off. I had to go back to my hotel room with my emergency costume repair kit that you have to bring with you to the con, and hot glued it back on. Just took a second and it was fine. So this is Borg Arm #1. The other one that I'm going to be making, like I said, for the next con it's going to have a flexible joint to it. Hopefully, if I get around to it, I will post some kind of addendum video to show that. Other pieces, so I have 2 other pieces to show you, is a hand piece and then the pants. So this Borg arm went on my left arm, and I'm right-handed. I wanted my right hand to be free, but I wanted something to cover it. So I found this, I think it's like for rollerblading. It's like a guard that you'd use on your hand in case you fall. So what I did was, there was actually a hard piece of plastic on both sides of this. I took one side off, it goes on my hand like this. Okay, I took this hard piece of plastic off. This is actually, I think, upside down. I think it goes the other way so that when you fall, it's going to protect you. There they are again, those permanent curlers. These are my simulation tubules. So I glued those to the top and then spray painted them. I just hot glued in a little section of black tubing. I stripped the wires. This is this coaxial cable or RF cable. Pulled the internal wires out of it so they'd be a little bit more flexible. Hot glued those inside of there. Then I used, again, these rubber bandy things that were part of the Perm rollers to connect those, just to make them kind of look like power wires. That was it. So that was simple. And that way you can easily use your hand for, at the con if you need to. It's easily removed if you need to, but it also just adds something to the costume. And lastly, I want to show you the pants. And here are my Borg pants. I think I mentioned at the beginning of the video, these are actually women's stirrup pants, which are awesome because they will keep your pants nicely tucked inside of the boots. And so then for these are actually pretty, the decoration is relatively simple. What I did is, again, this is actually shoulder padding, but I just flipped it upside down. So this would actually go on your shoulder and then this would come down. I flipped it upside down. I cut off some of the extra padding, spray painted the whole thing black. It took a couple of coats. And then what I had to do in order to get these to stay is I did use my sewing machine for most of it, very slowly, and just kind of stitched them on this side, stitched this one on this side. And then for the top, since this is hard plastic, I glued and sewed on Velcro. So I'm not going to take them off, but the top, there's Velcro I used a super strong epoxy glue with the Velcro on the inside of the plastic. And then on the pants part, I sewed the Velcro in place. And so that when I have these on and when I stand up, they stay just as you see them. Otherwise, if you didn't have that Velcro when you stand up, the whole top part would kind of hang down and look weird. So those are the pants. Those are very simple. Now, what I've seen some people do is take like a piece of tubing, and I could have done this too. I probably still could, minus this little white part, and just stick a piece of tubing down in the front of this, and then I could bring this tubing up to my costume, and attach it somewhere on the side so that when I'm wearing it, it looks like this tubing is part of my leg or something. I don't know. Maybe I'll do that in the future. But for now, I'll show you the pictures of the full costume. It looked great. My costume actually won an award at the con. There was a huge costume contest, and it won a Judge's Choice Award. So that was pretty cool. So that's it. That's my Cyborg Borg, Steampunk Borg costume. Suggestions, if you want to make it more steampunk, change the colors and some of the components. The yoga mat for steampunk costume, you could use a brown yoga mat that looks more like leather. You could just use different color paints. Instead of black and silver, you can use copper and brass colored paints. That's much more of a steampunk look. So really it's just about the accessories and the components. The basic construction of your costume, though, is completely versatile, whether you're doing Star Trek Borg or robot or steampunk. So anyway, hope you enjoyed the video. If you make your own costume, please share and upload a picture. Would absolutely love to see it. Thanks.